Hello, everyone. Very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you. I know that we have people representing more than 3, 4 geographies right now. And within India, we have almost 5 to 6 cities represented. So, very warm welcome to all of you. And I know this is a very close knit, well community. Very warm welcome to Jack for joining us today on this. And it's an evening time for you, and glad that you could make it. Jack is joining us from Melbourne, Australia.
Thank you so much, Gayatri. It's lovely to be here, and thank you for having me along.
Great. So, as I extend my warm welcome to everyone, it is also an opportunity to realize that this is one critical juncture in the history of human, development, where our development is actually at, crossroads with the harmony with which we exist in nature. And also our own wellness is at stake. And COVID-19 was a very stark reminder for this, how we have actually been not very careful about managing our harmony with nature and how that is affecting our individual well-being as well as planetary well-being. So it gives me great pleasure to also announce. So before I go with that announcement, I have to just do a quick introduction, and I'll also request Jack to introduce himself. So I am Gayatri Chauhan, founder and CEO of BuzzOnEarth. And BuzzOnEarth is an organization from India focused on mainstreaming sustainability and climate action. And we are here to work at the ecosystem level in order to promote the dialogue, in order to do consulting. So basically, we do 3 things. We help convert naysayers into believers when it comes to sustainability and climate action and well-being. Second, those who are already believing, we help them take effective action. And the third, those who are already taking action, we give them more power to do more, and also encourage them with the recognition that we provide through the media vertical that we have. So that is in very brief nutshell that BuzzOnEarth is focused on. And with that, I would request Jack to do a quick introduction.
Sure. Well, hi, Gayatri. Hi to the entire audience who's watching either live or a recorded version of this particular session. My name is Jack Noonan. As mentioned previously, I'm based in Australia, in Melbourne, which is the city where I was born and grew up. And for those of you who have been to Melbourne, you will know probably why I have not left, because it's a pretty magical city. First and foremost, I'm a father, a husband, somebody who's very passionate about sport. The last time I was in India, I had many wonderful conversations about the cricket. And I'm a passionate Australian cricket fan as well. Please don't hold that against me. I love sport and spend a lot of time with my family playing sport and watching sport. In my day job, I work at the International Wellbeing Institute. The International Wellbeing Institute is an organization that's headquartered in New York City. I've been with the organization for about 5.5 years now. I'm a scientist by training, so I trained as a scientist. Fortunately or unfortunately, I quickly discovered when I was finishing my degree and doing my research that I couldn't spend the rest of my life looking down a microscope. So I did some additional studies around business and sustainability, and I started my career as a building and environmental consultant, or building and environmental scientist. And that's where I really fell in love with sustainability. I have worked with a number of different sustainability rating tools across my career, including LEED and Green Star and Green Mark. But I always had a very deep fascination with indoor environment quality and the role that the indoor environment could have on people's health, well-being, their productivity, their engagement, and their happiness. So that's why I was really delighted 5.5 years ago to get the opportunity to join the International Wellbeing Institute. My role today is that I lead the operations for the Asia Pacific region, and that includes India. And I'm very, very proud and delighted to be in that role. The Asia Pacific region is quite unique because it includes India, but it doesn't include China, Hong Kong, and Macau. So we have a separate team in China that is responsible for China, Hong Kong, and Macau. But we have a small but mighty team across the Asia Pacific region that is really looking after the growth and the technical support of the well building standard across this very special region. I should also say, I just want to kind of make a very quick comment on the growth of well internationally. I'm sure that we'll get into some questions about the growth of well in India, but I think it's very important to recognize that when I started with the organization 5.5 years ago, we had about 1,800 projects in 26 different countries. That was in 2018. Today, we have over 41,000 projects. We have over 41,000 projects in 127 different countries. And if you look at the makeup of those projects, Asia Pacific stands above the rest. The fastest growth of well anywhere in the world is happening right here in Asia Pacific. And we're very, very proud of that. And that's one of the reasons why you will start to see more of our team across India. You will start to see more and more activity for well across India as well. And we're very, very proud of that fact that, that the majority of the growth is happening in Asia Pacific.
Great. Thank you, Jack. That was a very elaborate introduction. Thank you so much for it. With that, I would also take this opportunity to announce the partnership between IWBI and BuzzOnEarth, especially in promoting well in India. And we know that India is a prime geography, not only from the market standpoint, but also from the geographical standpoint, where I think wellness and sustainability is pretty much rooted in the traditions and culture of India. And having well incorporated in the building science and the building environment is just a natural extension to that. So any quick reflections on the partnership, Jack, from your end?
Well, I'm just really, really proud to be involved in this partnership with BuzzOnEarth. It's very clear to me that you have led the way in relation to sustainability and broad sustainability initiatives in India over the last few years. We're really excited about taking a lens around social sustainability, and perhaps we'll get into what that means a little bit later as well. But we're just very, very proud of this. And in terms of my objectives or my desires for this particular partnership, I really hope that people feel like they can become part of a community. This Well in India movement isn't just a movement in terms of projects. It's also about building a community of people that share values and objectives. And another part of me is really interested in using these particular sessions to maybe bust some myths, change some misconceptions around difficulty or what is going on with well across the region as well.
Absolutely. So thank you again. So very warm welcome everyone to this session. And as I said, this session is going to be partly the conversation between me and Jack, and then we will follow that up with an interactive session with all of you. And please be ready with all the questions that you have for building a thriving well community in India, and also any kind of technical aspects that you would like us to cover. As I said, this is the first episode of the knowledge series that we are building on. And this particular series will be focused on the knowledge sessions and anything related to well, why, how, and how-tos, and the parameters and the specifications. All of that can be covered in these sessions. However, we'll be also having other 2 sessions apart from this. One will be a roundtable physical event, which will be, in various cities that we plan in India. And second is going to be a dedicated podcast series, wherein we will be bringing in some wellness experts from the industry, and also talking about wellness as a broader concept to build the dialogue on. So on that note, Jack, I would like to just give you a little bit of background on the wellness industry and how it stands. The latest report tells that there is a $5 trillion industry on wellness. And India stands at a very beautiful sweet spot because we are at a projected level of 3 to 4% capturing this market. So, which is going to be close to, I mean, and the recent another report that is talking about the, growth from 2020 to 2024 is talking about some 1,300 billion US dollars that India will be marking. So how do you see India as a market when it comes to wellness, and how IWBI is envisioning its extending its footprint in India going forward?
I think it's thank you. I think it's a fantastic question. I think that there's a huge opportunity for health and well-being as it relates to real estate in the Indian market. The wellness industry is very, very, very broad. And a focus on health in buildings is really important. Now, the reason for that is that all of the research globally shows that the physical and social environment is the #1 determinant of our health. It has a greater impact on people's health and well-being compared to their access to medical care, compared to their lifestyle behaviors, compared to their genetics. The physical and social environment is the #1 determinant of our health. So what we at IWBI really advocate for is using our buildings, using our built environment as forms of preventative healthcare. We have a chronic disease epidemic across the world. Many, many people have chronic diseases, in addition to the very strong focus that we've had on infectious diseases over the last couple of years. But if we can use our buildings properly, if we can design them better, if we can operate them better, if we can construct them better, we actually have an opportunity to use them as forms of preventative healthcare. Now, I think India is really starting to latch onto this opportunity. There are a couple of reasons for that. A large reason for it, particularly from what we're seeing in the market in India, is that there are a lot of large corporate organizations that have very strong footprints in India. So the likes of Citibank or JP Morgan Chase or SAP or big tech companies, big financial institutions. And what we're finding is that these organizations are having a very strong commitment around social sustainability and healthy buildings for a couple of reasons. #1, they want to showcase what they're doing on a world stage. I think it's one thing that I've learned about India over the last period of time is that India is a very proud country. And that is certainly the case when it comes to sport. And it's certainly the case when it comes to buildings as well. It's a very proud country. And the built environment industry wants to showcase what it's doing. But secondly, I think it's fair to say that attraction and retention of talent is a key driver in the India market. Why would an individual choose Citibank and not choose JP Morgan Chase? Why would an organization choose SAP and not another kind of tech company? The reason is because salary and benefits will only take you so far. It's about a holistic view of people's health and well-being. What type of amenities are you providing that really value the individual rather than just salary and benefits? I think that is something that is very key in India, that the market in India has really started to appreciate. We have two different dynamics. We have the tenant-led market, and then we also have the real estate market. Now, real estate is also very competitive at the moment. I know that the statistics aren't as bad in India as what they are in New York City or Sydney or Melbourne, but there is still vacancy within a lot of commercial office buildings. I was at a tech company in Bangalore recently, and their head of sustainability and facilities told me that normally we have 2,000 people in this particular building, and today we have less than 200. Because people have recognized that they can work from home. Now that presents both an opportunity and a challenge for the real estate industry. The real estate industry in India, but not just in India, everywhere, needs to step up. They need to earn the commute. Why is somebody going to drive an hour to their office if they can do the same work from home? They're going to do that because their office is going to provide something different. It's going to enhance their health and well-being. It's going to actually enable them to be more productive, more engaged, to connect with colleagues. So that's where I think we sit as an opportunity within the India market. I think the India market recognizes that. And one thing that our COO, Pratik Khanna, often says, once the India market recognizes something, they move very, very quickly. And the growth that we have seen in India is very, very fast. And that's what I think is the real opportunity here. It's not just the size of the market, it's about how quickly that market can move on an international scale.
That's brilliant. And that also puts another question in perspective, and that is, I know this audience is already aware, but since this video is going to be watched by several uninitiated folks as well, so do you mind telling a little bit more about Well Standard and how it is addressing wellness in the built environment?
Yeah, so it's once again a great question. The Well Standard is an evidence-based, research-led set of interventions that relate to organizations, buildings, and communities. They cover 10 different categories. So you've got air, water, light, movement, thermal comfort, materials, mind, community. I'm always going to forget one, nourishment and innovation. There are a number of different interventions across the standard that relate to those particular categories. Organizations, the Well Standard is administered by the International Wellbuilding Institute, the organization that I work for, but it is not written in isolation. So all of the interventions within the standard are not only research based or research backed, but they also go through a very extensive standard development setting process. An important aspect of that is to have international representation, and there are a number of individuals from India that are informing the Well Standard. So this is not something that is just written by folks in the US, which is where we're headquartered. It's actually being informed by individuals from many different countries. I think we're close to 40 different countries that we've got representation on what we call our advisories that basically inform what is in the Well Standard. The Well Standard is not just based on design. So those of you who are familiar with traditional green building rating tools, there's a very strong focus on design in those tools. Well is a little bit different. Well does have a design element to it, but it also has an ongoing operational requirement to it as well. And in addition to that, there are policy or behavior change interventions as well. And a really good example of this is, if you've been into many high-end commercial office buildings these days, you will see this proliferation of wellness rooms. So you'll see a wellness room as you walk into the lobby. There might be a dedicated wellness room, and this is very common within corporate tenants as well. Now, you can design the best wellness room in the world, but if you're using that wellness room as a storage cupboard, and you've got a whole bunch of boxes in that wellness room, so you're not operating it as the design has intended, or you don't have a policy in place to say to people, look, if you're feeling a little bit burnt out during the day, or you're feeling a little bit tired, take half an hour and spend some time in the wellness room. If you don't have a policy in place and you don't have leadership that is modeling the right behavior around how to use that wellness room, you can design the best wellness room in the world, but it will fail. So the important point of the Well Standard is that it is focused not just on design, but it's also focused on ongoing operations and also on policies that can instigate healthier behaviours. The final point around the WELL standard that I really want to emphasize is that it's performance-based. So it's one important part of the WELL standard is often we are, depending on the features or the rating or the certification that you pursue, we are asking organizations to do an independent test. So you might design for great air quality, but what is the actual quality of the air within the space? This is one thing that WELL asks that question. We want to actually understand what is the actual quality of air in the space? What is the actual quality of water that's coming out of the tap? What are the lux levels from the lighting? What's the acoustic performance from all the materials? What are the thermal comfort considerations? So WELL has a very strong emphasis on the performance of spaces as well. And that, I think, is one thing that sets it apart. So that is, in a nutshell, what the WELL standard is all about. It is evolving as new health issues become apparent in society. We are able to respond to those and introduce new interventions within the standard. There's some excellent interventions at the moment around housing equity, around domestic violence support and education, and also around modern slavery issues as well, which are three very important and growing issues as it relates to social sustainability. And these are new issues that have been integrated within the WELL standard. So if anybody on this line is working on a WELL project and you're working on something that is particularly innovative, that is a health issue that you don't see in the standard, please let us know, because there is a chance that might actually be part of the standard moving forward.
That's good to know that, because I remember during COVID-19 and when people started working from home, it had its own downside and the upside both, because a lot of women did report, this kind of treatment that they had to undergo for whatever reasons, whether it was at workplace or bullying of some kind at home or domestic violence or this modern slavery. All of these are existential issues that have to be sorted, and WELL standard, since it talks about overall wellness, needs to address that at some point. That also brings me to the context that you have partly addressed, that WELL standard is developed by people representing various countries. You have already mentioned 40 countries are there as advisors to develop that. So what kind of contextual adaptations have been made with respect to India? Is there something in specific that you would like to highlight? Because this is a particularly Indian audience.
Yeah, so I think there's one thing that we have evolved, and I don't think this is necessarily specific to India, but I think it is relevant to the Asia Pacific market, is that we've tried to make the WELL standard more flexible. Mm-hmm. So for those of you who have been involved with the WELL community or the WELL movement for a number of years, you will know that in the early years, we had a standard called WELL version 1. Now, the biggest criticism that we had around WELL version 1 was that it was inflexible, that it was very US-centric, and that it couldn't be applied to existing buildings. Now, that was a big problem, not just for India. It was a very big problem for Australia. It was a very big problem for Japan. It was a very big problem for Singapore. So when we launched WELL v2 as a pilot in 2018 and as a full standard in 2020, we listened to the marketplace, and this included feedback from India. We made sure that the standard was more flexible. And what do I mean by that? So in WELL v1, there were 45 preconditions, mandatory requirements that applied to any certification project. In WELL v2, there are only 23 mandatory requirements that are available, that are needed for every WELL project. Now, the mandatory requirements that were in WELL v1, a lot of them are still in WELL v2. It's just that they're not mandatory requirements. The interventions are still there. You just have the option of pursuing them. And why this is important is that organizations in India needed that flexibility. we didn't want to, it's when you write a standard or when you're involved as a certification body or rating, this is the case with my friends at the Green Building Council of Australia or the Singapore Green Building Council or Green Building Japan or or GBCI and their work with LEED. When you're writing a standard, you need to get the balance between how can we shift these projects to do something different, and how accessible and how can we encourage uptake? And I think that was the big issue for India in the early days. It was seen as too hard, too inflexible, too US-centric. And with WellV2, we've actually enabled a more flexible approach for projects. So now we have over 800 projects in India that are pursuing well. Now, if you had told me that under WellV1, I would have said, no, that's crazy. That's not possible. But WellV2 allowed more flexible pathways for projects in India. It allowed more flexible processes for both air quality, because obviously air quality can be an issue in India compared to other parts of the world, but also around thermal comfort, because thermal comfort in India is quite different to thermal comfort in other parts of the world as well. And that is something that we also see in Singapore.
Yeah, and there is also the point to be incorporated that India is a diverse country with almost 5 climatic zones and multiple diverse cultures, and so rich and vibrant culture. So how are we addressing those while addressing well standards? Because the workplace culture is very much affected in whichever place you're working. Right?
Yeah, and this is something that we've been really inspired by in terms of our trips to India have really inspired a different way of thinking around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the cultural aspect is so important to that. When we talk about health and well-being, and when we talk about a healthy building, we're not just talking about physical health. We're talking about social health, and we're talking about community health as well. We're talking about mental health as well. So we're not just talking about physical health. And the diverse nature of India really reinforces the need to create spaces that make every person feel welcome. And that is very much our focus at IWBI. It's about health and well-being, but it's also through a lens of what we call health equity. And that means that everybody, we're not just designing spaces for, a middle-aged man who works in an office, that traditional view of how we design offices. We're designing offices for everybody, so that it doesn't matter what your ability is, whether or not you have a mental health condition, whether or not you have a special need, whether or not you are neurodiverse or on the spectrum. Every single person should feel welcome when they come into a space. And I think the cultural aspect of India has really inspired a lot of the thinking. Freedom of expression, freedom of religious expression is something that we're starting to see as a really key trend coming from India as well. And that will start to inform our standards as well.
And when it comes to the community impact, there is a scope or the boundary defined by the building and the built environment that is striving for well certification. But then there is a community that is impacted because of the very existence of that building or campus. And that is more true when it comes to campuses like the big IT giants in India, Wipro, Infosys, IBM, TCS, and so on. So there, the very fact that you have an office space or a tech park is going to impact the surrounding communities. So how does that get factored in, and how is well addressing that kind of community impact?
Yeah, so there are a number of interventions within the WELL standard that go beyond the 4 walls of an office, which is incredibly important. How can either real estate companies or big corporates actually influence health and well-being of broader communities. Now, I've referenced some of those previously already. So domestic violence is something that in very extreme cases, it happens in the workplace, but the majority of domestic violence incidents actually happen at home. But the workplace can have a role in addressing that community health emergency. Similarly with housing equity or modern slavery, or encouraging flu vaccinations, or making sure that people have mental health support services or substance abuse services. These are all things that workplaces and the built environment can influence the health and well-being of broader communities. And that's what we're starting to see. It doesn't necessarily need to be a huge tech park. Now, these big tech parks, they have a lot of real estate. They're also quite innovative with their thinking. So they arguably are leading a lot of those conversations. But you can have a small building that still wants to impact their community. And they might say, well, rather than just focusing on the health and well-being of that employee, we're going to do something more innovative. We're going to focus on the health and well-being of that employee's whole family or the broader community that is around this particular building. We're going to open up the space so that local community groups can use our space when we're not in it, perhaps on the weekend. And we're going to engage the local community in our space and give them a space where they can congregate, as an example. So there are a number of different interventions across the standard which really encourage this broader community health, this broader social health perspective that I think is very important. And something that, when we talk about ESG, so environmental social governance, I think the most innovative companies around the S are not just focusing on their own company, they're focusing on how they can create social impact beyond those four walls of an office.
Okay, great. So in India, you already have 800 projects up and running. So out of those 800, what would be the kind of split? What sectors are they representing?
So a very large split of those projects come from the financial services and insurance industry. I think I've got the figures here. Over 357 projects come from the financial services and insurance sector. Real estate accounts for over 300. And then there's a kind of a mix for some of the others. So I think it's fair to say that financial services have really, and real estate have really led it. We're starting to see a very strong emerging focus in India from the tech industry as well. I would say that that's probably been a little bit slower than the financial services industry, but we're starting to see that really emerge. And then also we're starting to see very strong uptake from the pharmaceutical industry. Now, I don't think it's any coincidence that these are industries that are very focused on attracting and retaining the best talent. And that is one of the reasons why we're seeing this growth. It's very, very competitive out there. You want to attract the best talent. So this is why you're actually getting a third-party verified system to attract that best talent. Real estate is quite interesting in India because what we're seeing what we call a well at scale approach. And what well at scale means is that rather than thinking about well for one individual building, many organizations are saying, well, we operate these buildings in a similar way. We have similar policies that apply to all of our buildings. We're going to start applying this at scale. So we call it well at scale. One of the most famous cases of applying well at scale globally is our friends at Embassy REIT, who is obviously an iconic Indian company. Now, Embassy REIT has achieved more WELL certifications than any other organization in the world. So Embassy REIT is not just leading India. Under the WELL at Scale program, they achieved 18 WELL Gold certifications. No other organization globally has been able to do that. So I often say that it's it's not just about the leaders in India. A lot of the leaders in India are leading the world in relation to some of this thinking. So we've got 895 different projects. I'm just reading it now, 895 projects. Many of those projects are world leading. They're not just India leading, they are world leading, which is very exciting.
That's really very interesting. And when we talk about the business impact, because many of the newcomers who would be still, on the fence and still deciding whether we should go for it or not go for it. So two questions over there. One is that, does well have any kind of prerequisite for a building to be a green building? And second, those who are going for well certifications, what kind of business impact have they reported as part of being a well certified property?
Yeah, so to answer your first question, it depends on how you engage with well. There are well ratings and then there's full well certification. Now, if you want to achieve full well certification, there are mandatory preconditions that you must achieve. For a well rating is a subset of the broader well standard. It can be seen as a stepping stone to full well certification. It could be seen as a slightly easier way to engage with well initially. So for well ratings, there are no mandatory requirements. You need to achieve a certain percentage of the features that are available for that rating. So if you know that you can meet those mandatory requirements, well certification is probably the best bet. If you're not sure about some of those mandatory requirements, you need a little bit more flexibility, a well rating might be more appropriate. In terms of your second question, which I think is a really important question, what are organizations seeing as a result of their certification? So we are starting to see research that is emerging from the projects that were certified several years ago. And the research is very compelling. We are seeing significant improvements in productivity scores. There's a recent study that was published in the Journal for Buildings and Environment that looked at 4 different well-certified spaces across the US. And they found that there was a significant increase in productivity scores or self-reported productivity from occupants that were in those particular buildings compared to the pre-occupancy study. So the way that it worked was they were surveyed prior to the well certification or prior to the upgrade of their facility. They upgraded their facility, went through well certification, and then did a post-occupancy evaluation. Significant increases in self-reported productivity, significant increases in engagement, and significant increases in occupant satisfaction as it relates to indoor environment quality. Now, what's the date today? The date is the 6th of September. On the 1st of September, so just 5 days ago, a very important study was released by the University of Melbourne, which looked at 14 projects across Australia, China, and Singapore. 10 of those projects were well certified and 4 of them were not well certified. And the researchers at the University of Melbourne said, well, we want to compare what is the difference between the well certified spaces and the non-well certified spaces. And one thing that I really want to call out is that they weren't comparing really good buildings that had well certification and very average buildings that didn't have well certification. These were all good buildings. The significance of this particular study is that there were over 1,400 respondents to these surveys, so it was a big sample size. And what they found were significant differences in terms of people that were in well-certified spaces and their engagement with the physical environment and their satisfaction with the physical environment. But in addition to that, they found that people were self-reporting higher health outcomes in well-certified spaces compared to non-well-certified spaces. So people felt like they were healthier. They would have less issues around musculoskeletal disorders, less issues around mental health conditions, less issues as it relates to broad sick building syndrome symptoms. Now, this is the first time that we've seen a study of this size compare well-certified spaces to non-well certified spaces. It's a bit of a game changer, because if you would ask me, what is the future of well, I'm very interested in how well influences sustainable finance and also influences the insurance industry. So the insurance industry would ask, well, is there any potential for us to offer a lower premium on health insurance for people who are in well-certified spaces? This research really says that people in certified spaces are self-reporting better health outcomes compared to non-well-certified spaces. Now, they're the statistics that make me most excited. But if I'm being completely honest, the real estate industry are driven by different statistics, and that is all about kind of financial benefits. And I think that's a really important conversation to have. But the good news is that we're seeing similar positive outcomes from the real estate sector as well. We're seeing increased leasing velocity. We're seeing increased rental premiums. We're seeing tenants that are staying within those buildings for a longer period of time. The expression that we like to use in Australia is stickier tenants. So tenants that don't leave after 5 years or leave after 10 years, they stay, they stick with the building. Because we know that there's a significant cost associated with losing a tenant. So if you can retain that tenant for a longer period of time, that has a significant financial benefit as well. And what we're finding is that for well-certified spaces or well-certified buildings, all of those things are true. Higher rental premiums, increased land value or building value, stickier tenants, and tenants that want to stay longer as well.
That's great. With that, I would like to thank you, Jack, and would request our audiences also to be ready with their questions, because we would like to now have a more interactive discussion and more deeper questions than what I've been asking, because we were just setting the stage up for Well in India, and now we are ready to take questions from you. Okay, I see Shobit raising his hand.
Yeah, hi, can I go first?
Yes, Shobit, please go ahead.
Okay, first of all, thanks to Gayatri and Jack for arranging this session. It was quite awaited by all the members. Happy to have you on the board of the Well AP small group. What we are running aim is to enhance the Well AP sustainability practices. So happy to have you both on board with us there. My one question is, and I'm sure everyone will resonate. What is IWBI plan on launching India-specific body, wherein the question related to Well AP exams can be addressed, where we can focus on creating more and more Well AP certified professionals among the community. Idea is to enhance the visibility of Well AP and understanding among professionals, which I still feel is somewhere not awareness is not there when it comes to well. That's my personal view. And how we are able to bring the community closer, bring all the Well AP members, have regular meetings or forums, have their knowledge intact, have some case studies shared. I think someone has put in the group about the ROI, what is there if we go with the Well AP. So certain professional body catering to Indian market, what is the IWBI plan on that?
Fantastic question. It's funny because when we did the event in Bangalore in, was it June or July? I can't remember. 30th. Thanks, Gayatri. When we did the event and Prateek got up as our Chief Operating Officer and spoke passionately about our vision and our objectives with Well in India, that was the first question that came back as well. What are your plans for actually a presence in India? The answer is that we're very committed to growing well in India. At the moment, what that looks like is our regional team, which is scattered across Asia Pacific, spending more and more time in India. I do see a future where IWBI makes dedicated hires or it has dedicated employees in India. I'll be very honest with this group. We attempted that about 18 months ago, and we unfortunately didn't find the right person at the time. So we are very committed to growing well in India. We're taking a bit of a careful approach, I think it would be fair to say. And what that means is that we recognize that, yes, the awareness or it might not necessarily be quite there at the individual level yet. And that's why we as IWBI Asia Pacific really need to get in there and help develop that market. Now, what that looks like includes events. It includes in-person events. It includes virtual events. It includes market activation events when we're physically in the market, but it also includes market activation events when we're not physically in the market. We obviously do a number of webinars, but whenever we're in India, we try to make sure that our presence is felt. And for those of you who attended the event in Bangalore, we were anticipating maybe 40 or 50 people at the event in Bangalore. I think we probably had more than 120 people there. And a number of those people hadn't registered for the event because we thought we had the right room, and the room was bulging. We had so many people there. Now, 120 people might not sound like a lot, but we were running those summits in other countries globally. That was by far the most well-attended event that we have had over the last 18 months. And we've done it in London, we've done it in New York, we've done it in Sydney, we've done it in Singapore, we've done it in Melbourne, we've done it in all the major cities, but Bangalore was the most well-attended. Now, I think that shows two things. I think it shows the desire for professionals in India to really engage personally and really engage in person, which is something that we've heard the market loud and clear, and we're committed to making sure that that's a reality. But it's also a sign of the huge potential that we have in India. There are a number of individuals that were at that event that had not heard about, well, they'd heard about well, but they hadn't really engaged with well. They weren't well-accredited professionals. We would love to see a bit of a study group, particularly for people who want to pursue the well-accredited professional designation. IWBI in the coming weeks, we hope, it might be in the coming month, we'll be launching a forum on our wellcertified.com website. And there will be a dedicated space for the APAC community to come and talk about their journey around the Well AP exam. So we will have resources and guidance for you through that online forum. But we are also very mindful that we want to do more events, and we want to have a growing presence in India as well.
Thanks, Jack, for the response. Looking forward to it. I'm sure this time you'll find the right success with your India endeavors, and hoping to catch up with you all in person. Thank you.
Definitely. And just on that point, I believe that we're still working out dates, but there will definitely be somebody from IWBI in India at least twice between now and the end of the year. There's a lot of exciting movement with a number of projects in India that we want to support, but also we hear you. We hear that you want to do more in-person events. We hear that you want to see us. We hear that you want to get engaged with plaque ceremonies and celebrations and that kind of thing. So we'll be in the Indian market a lot coming up.
Okay, Nikhil, would you like to go next? I see your hand raised.
Yeah, hi Gayatri and hi Jack. So I just have this query, like, what about the polluted regions which are having the PM 2.5 level more than the threshold that is mentioned in the well rating system. For example, in option 2 for air concept, modified thresholds in polluted regions, the outdoor PM 2.5 level is more than like 90 for New Delhi. So there, how are we going to address, or is there any strategy to address this limitation for projects who are willing to go for platinum certification, where if we pursue through option 2, we would be only limited to gold certification? So are there any strategies like which are implemented already in globally, where they have used any green barriers or green screens to show the PM 2.5 level outside? So I just want some insight into this.
It's a really great question. It's when Gayatri asked me a question around regionalization, this was the first thing that came to my mind. But to be perfectly honest, I thought that it might be too detailed or too specific a particular issue. But you're quite right that we have an option within the air concept, particularly around performance testing, that increases the threshold that is allowed, but it caps projects at gold. Now, this is something that was really implemented, not just for projects in India, but if I'm being really honest, projects in China. And China still remains as our number 2 market in the world as it relates to well projects. So that was actually implemented because there was that particular issue. I would say my expertise is around indoor air quality, and I would say that I would encourage projects not to default to option 2, and that's easier said than done. But there are a number of interventions across the standard, across the air concept, that even in polluted areas can get your air quality under that particular threshold. I would argue it doesn't matter what the air quality is outside, you should always maintain good air quality inside. Now, the way that you do that, particularly with particulate matter being very elevated outside, is, I think it's overly simplistic, but it's true, and it has stood the test of time for over 200 years. It's about ventilation and filtration. So having good air filtration that captures that particulate matter before it comes inside, and then obviously making sure that you have elevated or enhanced ventilation so that there is a dilution of that particulate matter when it is inside. So it's very simple. I know that it is not necessarily, in many cases, filtration and increasing ventilation can be quite costly. But if you look at the return on investment of better indoor air quality, the benefits pay for that. We know that it's quite a famous statistic that has been around for about 20 years now, that a 10% improvement in dissatisfaction with air quality relates to a 1% improvement in people's productivity. Now, 1% improvement in people's productivity can be worth literally millions of dollars for an organization. So yes, it might be more expensive to include air filtration. It might be more expensive to increase the ventilation within spaces, but it will have an impact on people's health and well-being, and it will have an impact in the bottom line moving forward as well. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that, Jack. So I just wanted to ask a quick question, one more. How easy is it for existing buildings in Indian scenario to accommodate well health and safety rating? And are there any extra incremental costs for the clients to take?
So the idea when we wrote the well health safety rating, and I shouldn't say we, when the community and our advisory wrote the well health safety rating, the idea of it was that there should be as much as possible, it should be possible for organizations to achieve the well health safety rating without any increased capital costs. So the well health safety rating is focused on what facility managers are currently doing and their own operations, rather than, going out and spending, hundreds of thousands of dollars on, new HVAC systems or something like that. That is not the intention of the well health safety rating. So what that means is that the well health safety rating suddenly becomes very applicable to existing buildings. There are many examples of existing buildings across India that have applied and successfully achieved the well health safety rating. Some of those, organized, I believe it's RMZ. RMZ have achieved the well health safety rating across all of their assets in India. Now, that doesn't just include their new developments. It includes all of their assets in India, their existing assets as well. So the well health safety rating has specifically been built for that.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you very much. I would, however, would like to coordinate after this meeting also regarding this option 2 that I wanted, to try new strategies. And thank you, Gayatri, for this wonderful session.
Sorry, Gayatri, you're on mute as well.
Oh,
Yep.
Thanks, Nikhil. I see, Kirti, your hand is raised for quite some time. Would you like to go next?
Yes, so good afternoon, everybody. So basically, we are based in Mumbai and we are doing a couple of well projects now. So we have two questions basically to ask on this forum. First being that towards the end of the rating, there is a segment which basically under innovation which says that if the projects are LEED rated or suitably rated, can get an advantage in the well rating as well. So my request here would be that we see that only LEED rated projects or applicable ratings which are internationally considered are given that advantage. But when you are trying to become a market in India or become suitably recognized in India, it would be advisable to also look at how you may want to integrate the platinum rated or the gold rated commercial buildings which are bestowed this rating by upon by ICC to be considered as a part of your well advantage, because otherwise it will largely slash down this option for a lot of commercial clients. That was one, and maybe you could give this a thought internally. And secondly, our experience so far has been that because well is relatively a very new rating system and more technically complex, uh, clients need a lot of hand-holding technically to come to a decision of whether they should register the project or no. And as on date, there is very little to practically negligible technical support available for the well rating system and the specific questions that we may have. So it would be nice if there is a dedicated technical team who could invest their time in resolving technical questions even before the project is registered, because that gives the consultants a little support in encouraging the clients to actually register projects well. So far, all your technical forums open only if the project is registered. But if the client is not convinced on registering a project because it seems like an uphill task to achieve, then I'm practically getting the horse to the water, but I cannot make it big. That's my strategy. So these are, I think, questions which we may not have answers to at the very moment, but maybe you would want to give in some internal discussion thoughts and see how you may want to relook at your approach towards the Indian market, and that will be a win-win situation for all of us.
Yeah, I think. Thank you, Kirti. That's fantastic feedback. In relation to the second question around technical support, you are quite right. We provide dedicated technical support to projects that register. Now, the way that we tend to operate is that we have quite a low registration fee. And the reason why we have such a low registration fee is because we want to provide that technical support to organizations. That being said, we will always provide technical support where it's needed. And
this also works that, sorry to cut you down first. So we have a couple of clients who are working, who will eventually be tenants in large commercial buildings. And here again, there's a third pain point that we don't have a dedicated well interiors rating system. What we have on the website is towards well core or well certification. but there is no dedicated rating checklist towards well interiors, and I think
Oh,
that is still the development. So a couple of clients that we have who are interested in well interiors, but they don't see the clarity in where this is going. When we tell them technically that these are the requisites on the project, or these are the technical requirements that they will have to propose, the questions that we often get is, will there be alternative compliance path, or can this be alternatively done? And as consultants, of course, we don't have an answer, because unless we get the verdict from the well senior team members or well technical team members, it'll be like, I'm not giving a correct advice to my client. So a
mm.
little bit of pre-registration technical support is necessary, because otherwise what happens is, if as a consultant I'm not able to convince my client, I am not able to bring him in.
Well, I completely agree, and this is exactly what I was about to say. We do provide pre-registration technical support. Now, you now have my details. I'm happy to introduce you to our wider team. Now, we will provide some limited technical support to projects prior to registration. There's no doubt about that. We do that with India projects all the time. It's just a matter of knowing where to go. And now that you're connected to me and you'll be connected to my team, our team provides that technical support in India all the time to projects that are pre-registered. The second
Wonderful.
thing, yeah, the second thing that in terms of wanting to get technical support very quickly prior to enrollment, you also have the option of emailing technical@wellcertified.com. Now that goes to our help desk, where you can basically say, look, my project isn't registered yet, but I need technical support. And our team of technical support people at IWBI are incredible. They're incredible in APAC, but they're also incredible globally as well. So technical@wellcertified.com, or contacting the APAC team directly, particularly if you have an issue with if you have a regional specific question. You see a particular feature and you say, I don't understand how that applies to India. We're the right person to go to. Now,
Sure.
the third thing that I wanted to mention is we do have a rating tool for interiors. Well certification. So you've got Well Core and you've got Well Certification. Well Certification is the tool for interiors. We don't call it interiors because a number of different reasons. Universities, industrial facilities, hospitals, they don't really understand what interiors mean. So they just want to pursue Well certification. So in Well version 1, we had Well Core and Shell and Well Interiors. In Well version 2, we have Well Core and Well certification, or what we often refer to as non-core. So the rating tool does apply to interiors. And interestingly, I'm happy to share this, as a follow-up. We have a tool that basically, it's called a Well Core to Interiors alignment tool. So if you are an interiors project in a Well certified core building, you can basically look at the scorecard for the core and shell, or for the core, and we will basically say all of these points in the scorecard automatically transfer to the interiors, no questions asked. So if you are in a Well certified building, or the Well Health Safety or a Well Health Safety rated building, you can achieve features for an interiors straight away without doing any work. So that is a really important resource, or an important educational tool that is available to all projects. It's called the Well Core to Interiors alignment tool, I think it's called. And it's freely available on our website as well. So if you look that up on our website, you'll have free access to that particular tool as well.
Sure. All right.
Alright.
It's nice to stay in touch with you even after this forum, because I think it'll be good to have constant conversations around this, so it reinforces these ideas in us as well, and kind of strengthens the way we take this ahead towards time. Thank you, Gayatri and Jack. It has been wonderful.
Thank
Thank
you, Kirti. And thank you everyone for your very patient listening and very active questions. Due to paucity of time, we will have to end this session here, but both Jack and I are available for you and happy to answer any questions post this forum as well. And thanks once again for being a pleasant audience. Thank you, Jack, for all the detailed and elaborate responses. And thank you for being patient with all the audience questions as well. Thank you, Alex,
Pleasure.
and everyone else on the IWBI team and BuzzOnEarth team for making this happen. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Gayatri. Thank you so much.
you. Thank you.